Welcome to the show, Joaquin.
Hi, JD. Thank you. Great to
Yep.
be here.
My favorite question to start off with is, what's your sober date?
April 4th, 2001, which
Oh,
makes it 24, almost 24 years.
yeah, I was gonna say you're coming up on 24 years soon.
Yeah, I sure am.
My sober date's April 1st, April Fool's Day.
There you go. And I think I read on your page that was during COVID, right? Like 2020 or something like that.
That was sober from alcohol, yeah.
Okay, good, good,
So
good.
like, I have four different dates that are important to me.
Hmm.
Which is April 25th, 2018. It's when I quit opiates.
Great.
And they were my biggest downfall for a decade in my entire 20s.
Hmm.
And then I got, February 29th, Leap Day of 2020, and that's from alcohol. And I got, April 1st from benzos and weed. And then I got July 13th from gambling.
That a boy.
So
Congratulations.
thank you. I appreciate that.
Bravo.
I
Bravo.
posted it all the dates into
Hmm.
a Facebook group, and someone was like, "So you're basically saying you've been clean since July 13th?"
Right.
And it's like, why would you try to give me something negative when I'm trying to bring positive light to all these dates?
I agree. I
Like
agree. There's no need
it's
for
shit
that.
like yeah, it's shit like that is not necessary for
No,
this.
not at all. Absolutely not. In fact, before we get started, I want to thank you for doing this. It's incredible that you have the compassionate heart enough to turn around after, a life of wanting to get better, wanting to feel better, and helping other people. That's phenomenal.
Thank
Not
you.
everybody has that type of heart. So, thank you so much for doing that. That's incredible.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't get paid to do this.
Hmm.
Actually, it's the opposite. I spend $9 a month to have my have the StreamYard site.
Right.
So, if anything, I'm paying
Right.
36
Right.
bucks a month in order to do this. I don't
Hmm.
have any sponsors. I don't get paid per views or anything like that.
Right.
It's my sober hobby.
I
Helping
love it.
people tell their story is helping me in my recovery because no matter which fellowship you're a part of or not part of, a,
Hmm.
a meeting is two addicts having a conversation or two alcoholics having a conversation. I do NA
Exactly.
Monday through Friday at noon, and I do GA on the weekends.
Hmm.
And, these are all my mini meetings. Every time I do one of these podcasts is my meeting for the day.
Right. That's a great way to look at it.
So, and I do multiple of these sometimes every day.
Great.
So, it definitely helps keep me sober, especially if I'm talking to somebody who's fresh in the recovery.
Right.
It brings me back to where I was 6.5 years ago when I first discovered, because like I didn't know what recovery was until I quit opiates.
Right.
I quit benzos and I quit everything else, alcohol, and I had a relapse with alcohol, a relapse with benzos. But my relapse happened for all the classic signs that you hear, all the cliches. Stop talking to my sponsor, I stopped going to meetings, I stopped having connection with my higher power.
Right.
All those things started happening, and then the relapse happens.
Right. And it will. Absolutely.
Yep.
That's a strong power addiction. It's a strong fucking power. No
Yeah,
question about that.
it's one it's one thing that I hold close to my heart
Sure.
is recovery. And my wife is in recovery also. We
Hmm.
both share the same sober date of February 29th.
That's great.
My wife does recovery Dharma meetings, which is like a Buddhist approach to recovery.
Great.
So we both have our individual recoveries, and we don't try to like micromanage each other's recovery. We just support each other in how we're working our programs.
Well, I think that's the way it works best, right? Supportive. I
Yeah.
think supportive is a huge word in sobriety. I mean, it is. It's something that we have to do. In fact, I mentioned to you that I'm writing a book on that exact subject, which is how can we best support each other no matter what path we take after choosing sobriety, because it really doesn't matter. We're all different people. I've
Yeah.
never been to a meeting in my life. I don't know anything about NAA, nothing, but I quit and I've been sober for 24 years and it's been the best 24 years of my life. No question about it. I'm healthier, I'm happier, I'm more joyful. I've stepped into my purpose in life, and my purpose is very similar to yours, which is helping people. I write, I speak, I've become an ordained minister. I've done all kinds of things in my life that under the guise of addiction, I would have never done. And I wouldn't have had the even wherewithal to be able to do that.
Yep.
So it's a powerful thing.
Yeah. What was going on April 3rd of 2001?
Well, I went to my opening day at Dodger Stadium, and I'm a big Dodger fan. Congratulations to my 2024 World Champion Dodgers.
I was rooting. I'm a Philly fan, so I was rooting
Okay.
for them as soon as we got knocked out.
Yeah, we did. I don't know how the Mets did that, but whatever. We'll deal with that next year. I thought the Phillies were a better team, but anyway, here we are. So I went to opening day every year for probably 13, 14 straight years. And went there, got shit-faced drunk the way I always did for 60. I started drinking when I was 14 years old, and I drank pretty much every day until I was 31. And I didn't just drink a little bit; I drank a lot. When I drank at the height of my drinking, I was 350 pounds. I would, drink anybody under the table. I just drank until I couldn't drink anymore. Always, every day, all the time. And so that day, something hit me. I drove home kind of drunk, little blackouty, and I almost hit something, and I went home. And for whatever reason, I woke up the next day and I said, I'm never going to drink again. And I have no idea where that came from. Well, I do know now it came from my soul, but at the time I had no idea. But I knew in my heart that there was no drinking after that. I would never drink again. And when you set up a social fabric in your whole life and your whole environment around drinking, that's a really difficult thing to do, to pull away from all those social circles and people and friends and bars and all the accoutrements that come with that. That was really difficult, but it's doable. And I want to say that to anybody. It's absolutely doable. 100%.
No, I agree. I started drinking at 11. So, that's 25 years. You know what I mean? Like, I had my bout of sobriety in 2018 where I went 13 months without a drink.
Right.
And then I fell off and I started drinking again for another 9 months. And then it wasn't until when I woke up on Leap Day in 2020 and I realized I drank a bottle of Jack Daniels the night before. Mm-hmm. And I said to my wife, like, either I need a drink right now or we need to quit together. Mm-hmm. It was that breaking point of the fork in the road and the two ways you can go.
Absolutely.
And I took the road less traveled of I'm going to stop this shit. And,
again,
and meetings were non-existent because that was 2 weeks before COVID shut everything down.
Right.
And we strictly had to rely on each other to get through that tough time of early sobriety.
Well, let me ask you a question. I know this is just, and this is more banter.
You can go back to this one.
No, I do, because would you say that having your wife do this with you was helpful or detrimental?
No, it was helpful. It was definitely helpful. We found ways to enjoy our sobriety together. We found activities to do together. We weren't married yet. We got married during COVID that November, you know what I mean, in our living room, and our friend got ordained and she did our marriage. We didn't have the families get together and do all that shit. Right. We weren't getting married for anybody in our family. We were getting married for ourselves.
For you, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and my wife already was divorced, so she already had the big wedding. You know what I mean? Didn't need that again. And I never needed the spotlight on me. So, I didn't care as much about people seeing me. In fact, after I got married, I saw my parents a few months later because, again, COVID, we couldn't do much. And saw my parents a few months later. We went and visited them for the day because they lived 2 hours away. And my dad handed me a wad of cash and said, thanks for not getting married with a big ceremony. And he laughed. And I got into the car and he gave me $1,000 wow. as a thank you for not having a big wedding.
Well, he probably got away cheap that you did do that. He figured $1,000 was okay, right?
Yeah, because all we did was order some Dominoes.
There you go. Right.
We didn't have the whole entire thing. We weren't drinking, so there was no open bar to pay for.
Great point.
So I mean, we both used medical marijuana. But we weren't smoking it all day, every day. It would be more medicinally. My wife has MS. So with her diagnosis of MS, they needed to have some kind of medicine when it came to it. And they actually just quit that October 1st. They saw me get 6 months without weed.
Wow.
and kind of gained some strength from seeing me get through it. So they felt empowered in order for themselves to get through it too.
Wow. Yeah,
So
that's an interesting one. If I could bring up a point here, in writing this book, I'm connecting to a lot of people who are working the program and this 12 steps. And a buddy of mine that I actually grew up with, we weren't real good friends, but I knew him. I'm actually interviewing him for this book because he's big on the alcohol, the meetings and the whole thing. And I want to add some substance to this, things outside of my own experience, so people can read a broad thing about how we recover, how we best recover. Anyway, I asked him if I could go to a meeting with him, and he said he doesn't do a whole lot of AA anymore, but he does MA, which is Marijuana's Anonymous. I didn't even know that existed. I had no idea. I had heard of AA many times. I actually went to a meeting way back when I was still drinking, but I didn't know about Marijuana Anonymous. And so he was telling me about that. And that's something I've struggled with my whole life also. That's a really hard one to kick. And I think a lot of times the difficulty there is we see marijuana is almost something docile, is something that's not, no, I'm fine with it, and I wasn't personally, and this is just my own personal experience. When I smoked marijuana, I would get up first thing in the morning and smoke marijuana, and I would smoke marijuana all day long, and I would smoke it right before I went to bed. There was no conscious space in there, none whatsoever. I was high all day long, because that's my gluttonous patterns. I like to do things to the extreme. And when you do things to the extreme, anything that you do like that can be unhealthy. I'm not going to say marijuana is unhealthy, because I don't think it is for everybody. For me, it was, because it would make me inert. It would make me overeat. It would make me not be connected to myself in the way, specifically spiritually, to myself in the way I needed to have that vital spiritual experience that AA talks about. You have to have that. That has to be the precursor to this whole thing. Recovery is part of that. It's finding a bigger part of yourself and allowing that to be predominant.
And they say there's no withdrawals from quitting marijuana.
That's not
true. I disagree.
That's not true. That's not true at all.
There might not be, when I quit opiates, I was quitting 200 to 300 hours of 200 to 300 milligrams of oxycodone every single day. So I was withdrawing big time from that. And when I quit marijuana, I didn't have that kind of pain.
No,
I didn't have the flu-like symptoms. I didn't have the cold sweats and all that shit. Right. But I did lose my sleep. I did have an appetite change.
100%.
I did have a moody.
Were you totally moody, fucking pissed off, like fucking angry?
I did, and I have heard of MA. I've been to one MA meeting when I lived in Los Angeles, actually.
Good.
I'm from the Philly area, right outside of Philly in South Jersey. When I decided to go to rehab, it was one of those things where it was 4/20. It was April 20th of 2018. It was a Friday. I'll never forget it. I got a bunch of weed. I got a bunch of pills, and I started, watching shit on Netflix. And there was a documentary on Netflix called Legend of 420. It's not on there anymore, but it used to be. And it showed different segments of, getting over epilepsy with marijuana, getting over this with marijuana. And a segment was getting off opiates with marijuana. And it highlighted a rehab in Los Angeles called High Sobriety. Mm-hmm. And for the first time in 10 years, I said to myself, that's a rehab I would go to. Mm-hmm. And the next day I had one of those really long days of waiting to see my dealer. I drove 2 hours to see him both ways. Wow. And, I finally got a hold of a dealer, and I bought 3 pills. That's all I could afford. And I'm driving I did 2 right away because I was withdrawing so bad. And I'm driving the 2 hours home. And I'm like, I had one of those come to Jesus moments. Like, what the fuck am I doing? Mm-hmm. Like, I just drove all that way, and now I have 1 pill to show for it. Mm-hmm. Like, this is what my insanity in my life. And I Googled high sobriety. It was 8 o'clock on a Saturday here, 5 o'clock in LA. Mm-hmm. And on a Saturday, and this guy answered the phone and talked to me for 2 hours. And he talked to me in a way that I'd never heard before. Right. Somebody that actually understood what I was going through and listened and, gave me some light at the end of the tunnel of what I can do. And he was like, I have a bed for you on Wednesday. If you can fly out here by Wednesday, let me know on Monday, talk to your family, see if you can get a one-way ticket out here and come on out, and I'll get you into the rehab on Wednesday. That's great. I talked to my family that Monday, told them what was going on. My dad thought I was just addicted to marijuana. He didn't know I was on pills.
Sure.
And so I went out to rehab out there, and I fell in love with Los Angeles. I was going to meetings all over the west side of LA. I lived in Culver City. I went to meetings there. I went to meetings in Santa Monica, and I went to meetings in Venice and West Hollywood. And there's a place called the West Hollywood Recovery Center. And they hold meetings all day long, all different kinds of meetings. And, you know, one of the meetings I went to was Marijuana Anonymous.
That's great.
Even though I was in a rehab called High Sobriety,
right? No,
I still wanted to hear what they had to say.
Of course.
I was addicted to going meetings. I did 250 and 90. So, you know, it was definitely a cool experience seeing the other side of the coin. If I ever did want to quit marijuana too, which, you know, 6 years later I did.
Right.
And, you know, it gave me hope that if people in Los Angeles can quit smoking weed, why can't
anybody? Right. Anybody can do it. Sure. Yeah, it's a powerful thing. Addiction in general is powerful. I mean, I think that's what we're talking about. Addiction. I mean, we're not just talking about marijuana or benzos or alcohol. Addiction is the problem. Right. When we become addicted to things, food for me has been big. You know, I've been a big dude my whole life, and it's really difficult to break that gluttonous pattern of addiction to food. Marijuana fed right into that. Right. You know, I don't know about you, but I got ravenously hungry when I was high. I could eat 10 times more than I could eat when I wasn't.
Yep, me too.
And I did, and I justified it by saying I'm high. Look, I'm high. I'm gonna eat, you know, and think different things taste better that I wouldn't have eaten sober, and it's just a totally different experience. But
now, addiction. Where are you from, Jaoquin?
I'm from well, I was born and raised in Long Beach, which is just outside of LA. I'm an LA guy my whole life. I grew up in LA, worked in LA. You know, everywhere you talked about is like my neighborhood. But now I'm about 60 miles east, out in San Bernardino County, in a town called Rialto. Yeah. But still, you know, I mean, it's so we do everything here. We go to Kings games and Dodger games. We're always in LA. So, and you're right. You know, I never really thought about that because I've been here my whole life. Just the culture here is so open to marijuana. It's so accepting of marijuana. You know, there's 14 dispensaries right up the street from my house. I could go get high anytime I want. Now you don't even need any money hardly anymore. Now they give away free shit. It just gets crazy. But when you justify that by saying it's okay, marijuana is okay, it's not affecting me too bad, and you have a gluttonous pattern like I have, gluttonous behaviors, there's a problem, because then it becomes that thing we lean on. And when we lean on something and it's pulled from under us, we fall hard. And that's an issue. For me, it's been an issue my whole life with everything I've ever done. Because if one is good, 10 must be phenomenal, right? And that's just the way I approach life.
I always say I'm addicted to the word more.
More, absolutely. More. Always more.
That's my addiction, is the word more. You know, whether it's gambling, whether it's sex, whether it's food, whether it's alcohol, whether it's pills, it's more. What did you discover first? What came first, the chicken or the egg, marijuana or alcohol for you?
About 14 years old, I did both. I don't remember exactly. I think I might have got high first. I do remember I still remember the first day I got high was in 9th grade. And I went to a new school in 9th grade. My 8th grade year, I was around a lot of studious, scholarly people. I was at an accelerated school where there was the drugs and alcohol weren't even an issue there at all, as far as I know. At least I didn't pay attention to that. And then I went to a public school in 9th grade, and holy shit, you know, everybody was into whatever, the partying lifestyle. It was the 80s in California. So it was everywhere. And I was walking across, I still remember walking across the field going to school, and somebody handed me a joint. I took a couple hits, and it was probably 2 minutes later. I said, well, this is something that I'll do the rest of my life. I knew it right. I mean, I knew it right away. I said, I've never felt like this before. And this is fucking amazing. This is fucking amazing. Because I'm a high energy guy. I'm go all the time. My mind is racing. My body's racing. I drive fast. I talk fast. I eat fast all the time. And when I smoke pot, I notice myself go, ooh, I settled into something. I settled into myself a little bit. And it was, wow. And then you get heady and you get on, and that kind of fed into my intellect and all this shit. And so I just went, whoa, that's something that I never want to not have in my life. I knew it immediately. Alcohol, I've had a love-hate relationship with. I did it because it was something to be gluttonous with, and everybody else around me was doing it. So I wanted to make sure that if I was doing it, that I did it more than anybody else.
It's funny. I
like
was
you
the
said,
opposite.
more.
I
Yeah.
was the opposite of the coin with that. I was 11 when I started drinking, and I was like, "Holy shit, this is what I've been missing."
Right.
And the same kind of feelings of I could see myself doing this the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
To the point when I was 12, I was drinking alcoholically. And
Wow.
my parents are far from alcoholics. They were together until the day my dad died. My parents weren't drinkers, but they knew how to throw a party, right? So there would
Mm-hmm.
always be liquor in the basement from leftover from parties,
Sure. Sure.
and I would steal it. And they
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't notice that it was gone because it wasn't even out of sight, out of mind for them.
Right.
So I would be the one that would steal it and sneak it up to my bedroom and then just like hide doing
Wow.
shots. I lived in the attic, so like it was a renovated attic and nobody ever went up there except for me. So I could hide bottles in my room and not worry about my mom going through my shit.
At 11 years old. Wow.
12. At 12 is when I started hiding my
So
liquor.
like you were in 6th grade, right? You were in 6th grade at that time. Wow.
Yep.
Holy shit.
I was being bullied a lot for my size, again,
Mhm.
being a bigger guy.
Right.
So, I would, cope. And when I was 13, I started smoking cigarettes. So I had a walk-in closet with a window, and I would open up that window and I would smoke my cigarettes out that window and then put my cigarette butts in a Gatorade bottle and, tighten it up this way the smell wouldn't be everywhere.
Right.
And again, no one ever went up to my room. If I had laundry, I had to bring it down to the basement.
Right.
So my mom was never in my room to like snoop around or anything like that because she has bad knees and my stairs were pains in the ass to get up my steps.
Right.
So when my dad never even thought to go up in my room.
Well, and I would imagine that they probably never even thought that you were doing that. I can't imagine they would have ever even
my
thought
mom
that about
didn't
you.
know.
No.
My mom didn't know I was drinking like that until probably 5 years ago. We've had a conversation about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was never even a thought in her mind that I was doing that. And, I didn't start smoking weed till I was 13, but I was the opposite as you, is like, I could take it or leave it at first.
Sure.
It was something I did if I was with certain people.
Right.
That I was seeking out every day. I was seeking out alcohol every day.
Sure.
Now you were in Long Beach, and I have to ask this question because I'm a huge fan of his. Did you go to school with like Snoop Dogg?
What's really interesting about that is
you're around his age.
I am. In fact, a lot of people that I knew went to school with him. I didn't go to Marshall. He went to Marshall Junior High School, and then he went to Pauley High School. I went to Newcomb, and a lot of the kids that I went to school with went to Marshall in 9th grade. So they went to school with Snoop Dogg. And then he went on to Pauley, and I went to Lakewood High. We were all in the same district. I mean, I probably, for black, I don't know, but I could have been at parties with him. I have no clue.
I was going to say the only two people I can think of off the top of my head are him and Cameron Diaz.
Cameron Diaz also, and I think I think they knew each other, if I'm not mistaken, in school. But
the rumor I heard is he used to sell her weed.
There you go. Well, that would make perfect sense, wouldn't it? That wouldn't surprise me at all.
Now, what did you ever get into any other drugs as a teenager besides
I did every drug. There was nothing I said no to. Like you said, more and more and more. I never said no to anything. There were certain things that I tried and I didn't like, meth being one. Crystal meth started becoming really super popular when I was in high school. A lot of people started doing that, and I did it because it was there, and I was one of those people that just couldn't say no to anything. Yeah, of course I'll do it. But meth made me feel like shit. That's a horrible fucking drug, bro. That's a horrible, horrible, horrible drug. It just fucking destroys your mind. It destroys your body. It destroys your relationships. It destroys your life. That is just a shit pit of a drug. We used to call it the devil's drug. Because it just makes you feel like you're in hell. Initially that first high, just like with alcohol or pot, you feel good for a certain amount of time, right? I mean, you're fucking on top of the world telling stories to everybody that'll listen. But 6-8 hours later, I'm looking for a fucking rock to crawl under because I feel so fucking shitty. And the next day you either do it again or you come way the fuck down. And that is the most depressive state I've ever been in my life, coming off of meth. That's a fucking horrible, horrible hangover. Just shit. Just yuck. Yeah,
there's 3 I haven't done. I've done a lot of drugs, and a lot of the drugs I did, I loved. But I was at the point where it's like, okay, well, I can never do that again. Or I can't do this every single day. Sure. It's a once in a acid. I loved it, but I could only do it in a once in a blue moon because the come down off
Yes, that's
acid
another one.
is significant.
It is very significant. It is.
And then PCP, it's basically like smoking acid. To the point where the come down is awful, but the high was great.
Right.
But you couldn't do it every day. And once
Right.
I discovered pills, I had that, oh shit, this is
it.
better than alcohol. I can pop a couple of these and be drunk,
right,
and not have to worry about drinking 25 beers to get drunk.
Sure.
You know,
yeah, I've never popped a pill, I don't think, in my life, to be honest with you. I don't think I ever did that. I dropped acid, I eat mushrooms, I smoked crack, I've done it all, but I just, for whatever reason, I don't know, the pill thing kind of started after I got a little older.
I guess. Yeah, you were already sober by the time the pills.
But the affliction of that now and the impact that's having on our society. What's that phenobar, or what's it, barbiturates, or whatever you've been on, benzos, and the things I'm hearing about that shit now is fucking nuts, man.
There's 2 drugs you can die from by coming off of suddenly without any kind of medical assistance, and it's benzos and it's alcohol. Those are the 2 that can literally kill you if you stop on a dime. With that.
Right.
Yep. And I've quit both by stopping on a dime, and we had to be really careful.
Sure, you do.
Because of how I was drinking and then just suddenly stopping, and how I was abusing my benzos. I was prescribed Ativan at first. After my dad passed away, my psychiatrist, gave me Ativan, and then I abused that by November, and then I convinced them to give me Valium, and then I abused that right away. I found myself snorting my Valium and really letting it take a toll on me, to the point where, like, my wife was like, you're missing a lot of pills. You're not sober right now. And it dawned on me, like, holy shit, I'm not sober. And it was like, I got to do something about this, because my sobriety is something that is really important to me. Like, I have this show about recovery, and I guess I'm not sober anymore. I got to do something about this. And that's when I started going back to AA. And that's when I started going back to NA. And then within a few months of doing that, my wife again was like, your gambling has kind of gotten out of control. And I put that under a microscope, and I was like, you know what, you're right. And I'm going to stop gambling. So I picked GA meetings doing Zoom. They're based out of Las Vegas, because I figured if anyone can stop gambling, it's people in Las Vegas.
Absolutely.
So
that's a tough one too. Gambling is something I don't think a whole lot about, although I have had bouts with, I don't know if I was ever addicted to gambling. Let's put it this way. I spent a lot of money on gambling I didn't fucking have. And that's a rough space to be in. When you're beg, borrowing, and stealing for fucking money to gamble with, that's when you're addicted to something, or at least it's unhealthy in whatever way it is.
Well, what happened was Pennsylvania legalized sports betting in 2019. So I didn't have to. I know California still hasn't legalized sports betting. Right. So I didn't have to use a bookie. I could just do it all through my phone. Online. Right. There was one night, and speaking of your Dodgers, I was up money, and I threw $25 on Shohei to hit a home run, and he hit one in the bottom of the 8th inning, and I won like $200.
Sure.
And, things like that. But the downside to FanDuel is it keeps track of all your wins and losses. So my wife asked me, what do your numbers look like? And I had to look at it and be honest, like, well, I've won $45,000, but I've lost $55,000. So
you're down 10 grand, right? Right.
And she was like, we could have bought a house.
With that. No shit.
Like, that's a down payment for a house.
So it sounds like with your wife, you have an accountability person there too, which is keeping you aware and keeping you healthy and keep you on track. That's a fucking amazing thing, bro. Yeah, that's an amazing thing.
Yep.
Hopefully you're thankful.
No, I do the same. And, we have a pretty healthy relationship, because if some kind of resentment comes up, we talk about it in the moment.
Yes.
They always say don't go to bed angry, and people ignore that. But like, if there's something bothering us, we don't let it stew and build and build and build. Right. Because of us both being in recovery, we know how important it is to, like, if something's bothering you, talk about it and say it. And let's have a conversation right now, as opposed to push it off to tomorrow and procrastinate our resentment.
No, that doesn't do anybody any good. That makes things worse. Yeah, that's a great thing, especially if both of you are on board with that. That's not always easy for two people to come together and see things the same way. That way, that's a miracle. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, we do marriage counseling. We do that every other week, and that's really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like we were about to get divorced or anything. We're both such huge people into therapy,
Mm-hmm.
and we both enjoy therapy so much and seeing the benefits that therapy can have,
Mm-hmm.
that we said, like, I think this could be good for our relationship to get even stronger, is
Sure.
if we involve a third party and talk about what's going on in our relationship as things come up.
Absolutely.
And we've been doing that for like 2 months now, and it's been really helpful. And I encourage anybody in a relationship to check it out, because it's not going to hurt your relationship by talking about it with a third party.
No, it's not. I think a lot of people miss the point of there's only two things that happen when we're inundated with something negative subconsciously, right? That comes inside of our being that we're not aware of. Either we hold on to it and it becomes disease or illness or suffering or addiction or whatever comes from that, or we talk it out, we verbalize that, and we release that through our emotions and through our feelings and through our ideas and through our presence and understanding of what somebody else is going through. So, man, there is so much value in expressing ourselves, specifically when it comes to our problems. I can't stress that enough. And I agree with you. I would recommend therapy for anybody, anytime there's any type of issue in your life, to have somebody there that you can talk to. And it doesn't have to be a therapist. It could be like an NA or AA. It could be a sponsor. It could be a mentor. It could be a guru. It could be a pastor at a church. It could be anybody. But you need to learn to express yourself, because
Yeah.
otherwise holding shit in will kill you. It literally kills people.
Yep.
That's where disease comes from. We hold it in and our body doesn't know what to do with it, and we won't let it out. Resentments, we talk about resentments a lot. That shit will fucking eat you up, bro. You can't, there's no liberated life when you're holding on to things. There's no liberation in that. There's no freedom in that. And ultimately, I think that's what our soul craves is freedom. We want to be free. We want to be free from it. That's why we choose sobriety. I don't want to be in the trap of fucking alcoholism. Fuck no, I don't. That was horrible.
When
Fucking
did your
horrible.
when did your drinking progress? In high school?
Yeah, I mean, I started drinking in junior high school. It got worse. Realistically, I think the biggest jump forward with my alcoholism is when I walked into a bar for the first time, because there was things in a bar that really resonated with me. There was live music, there was karaoke, there was gambling, there was sports, there was things there that I just went, holy shit. Well, now here's somewhere I could plant my fat ass and fucking stay, right? I'm going to stay here. And then you get into the social fabric thing where you develop friendships and camaraderie and acquaintances with people, the bartenders, the owners of the bar, people coming in that are daily drinkers. I didn't ever seriously, there's not one person you could have talked to, and there was hundreds of fucking people that I drank with over the years, hundreds of fucking people. I guarantee if you asked any of them at any time when I was drinking, if they ever thought that I would stop drinking, they'd have said, fuck no, that guy will never, ever not drink. That's his persona. That's his fucking social. That's my whole makeup was that. It was that experience of being there. I fit right in there like a glove, and I never wanted to leave.
Yeah,
But
that's how it was for me when I turned 21 too.
man,
I fell right in head first, and I was at the bar 5 nights a week. And if I wasn't
mm-hmm.
at the bar, I was at home drinking.
Sure.
I was the first person to live on my own when I was 21. I was 20 when I first moved out of my parents' house
Mm-hmm.
and got my own apartment. And being that young, all my friends still live with their parents, so they would come over to party. So
Mm-hmm.
if I wasn't at the bar, I was home partying. And then I went so hard at 21 that by 22, I needed something else except for drinking. And that's when I discovered opiates.
How old are you now?
38.
38. Okay, so we're talking 15
Two,
years ago.
2008.
8. Okay.
2007 to 2008 is when my drinking really progressed into daily. And then I moved to North Carolina when I was 28. I moved to North Carolina. My fiance had just committed suicide, and I didn't know how to process that. And I just
No.
uprooted my whole entire life to North Carolina with my brother, transferred our jobs, and worked in North Carolina living together, and I wasn't processing. Like you said, you be good friends with the bartenders, become good friends with the owners. Next
Sure.
thing you know, I'm doing blow in the kitchen with the
Me too.
bartenders.
Oh yeah, the whole thing. Right.
Y-
More and more and more.
Yep.
More and more and more. We have a lot of the same. We're on the same page here because again, I think you do another show on therapy, right? It's
I
not
do.
just the show, right?
Yep.
So you understand where this comes from. It's lack of love in your childhood. It's things that happen to us that we're fucking reaching. We're reaching for something that we don't feel inside of ourselves, and that's critical. That's part of this recovery process is finding what's inside of us and letting that be predominant. Whatever it is, and people can call it the higher power, whatever everybody's got their own theory. There's a religious aspect of this, there's a spiritual aspect of this, but regardless of that, there's something that compels people like you and I to be gluttonous, to want more and more and more of that. And for me, it was, I felt dopamine. The dopamine was a huge thing for me. I wanted to feel good. I was raised in a childhood. My childhood was not good. I didn't have good feelings. I had a lot of fucking fearful feelings and a lot of animosity and a lot of anger and hatred in my fucking household. So when I had an experience where I could fucking escape that and feel good inside through food, through alcohol, through fucking dope, whatever, I couldn't fucking believe it. I was thinking, fuck, I'm going to stay here forever. I'll never leave this ever in my life. Why would I ever do that? Feels amazing. But when I did that, I never factored in the flip side of addiction, which is fucking suffering, 100% suffering, horrible suffering, dark suffering, death on death's door. If I wouldn't have stopped drinking, I'd be dead. I would not be doing this podcast. I wouldn't be here right now. I know I wouldn't have been. I was fucking riding a wave that was taking me right into death. And I know you probably know that experience. I don't know if you'd be here if you fucking would have kept doing what you're doing.
Right? No, I wouldn't be because I would have gotten into fentanyl. Right. And the way I was using, I would have overdosed. And, I used alone a lot of the time. So nobody there to give me Narcan to wake me back up again.
Right.
I lived with my dad and my brother. My parents never divorced, but we started a plumbing company. We took over a franchise of Roto-Rooter because that's where we all worked, was Roto-Rooter Plumbing.
Wow.
And we got an opportunity to open a franchise in Amish country in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. So my dad and my brother would travel back to my mom's on the weekends, but Sunday to Thursday, we all worked together and we all lived together in a house we all rented. And, my dad and brother thought I was going to die from sleep apnea because they could hear me, as I was sleeping and so loud from the room over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had many friends tell me, dude, you stop when, we would pass out a party house or whatever. And when I would, you don't know, you're unconscious. I'm fucking sleeping. I just think I'm sleeping. But they said, dude, you'd fucking stop breathing for 30, 35 seconds. We're like, what the fuck? I mean, I wasn't even breathing. I was like, and I know you know that. That's a fucking crazy way to live. That's not good for you to not get oxygen. That's not good at all. That fucking keeps us alive. Fucking horrible.
Yeah. And since then, it's funny because I was bad snoring and all that kind of shit. And when I got to rehab, you have a roommate, you have somebody in your room with you, you're sharing a room with.
Right.
And I was like, I apologize in advance that, about my sleep, it's something that I'm working on.
Right.
And a week later, I was like, so by the way, how bad is it sharing the room with me with how I snore and how my sleep apnea is?
Right.
He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never heard you snore and I've never heard you stop breathing. And I was like, holy shit. That was all driven because of my drinking and my using.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, it's got a lot better since I've been sober. That's great. That's awesome. Yeah, it's a fucking man, just the things that come from that life, just the like I said, knocking on death's door. You're just everywhere you turn, there's just death. Anywhere you go, there's overdose, I used to drive drunk every day of my life. I never even thought twice about it. I'd get behind the wheel fucking anytime. I'd never even fucking call an Uber. Well, this is before Uber. When I drank, it wasn't even Uber.
Yeah,
it didn't. But even if that was Uber, I would have never fucking used it. I had too much pride and arrogance and fucking. I was too egoic to think that I couldn't get in my car and fucking drive. I could fucking drive.
I used to snort 120 milligram oxys while I was driving on the highway.
Right.
I would usually pick up, I would drive 2 hours and I would pick up 10 to 20 pills to last me a couple days because I would drive 2 hours each way 4 times a week, easy.
Wow.
And I'd be withdrawing the entire time I would drive there. And then I'd finally get them, and I would get a straw, bend it in half, and then I would drop the pills into that and then chew on the side of it so they'd break up, extend the straw,
and then
snort. And I would do that while I was driving on the highway.
Mm-hmm.
But I could do 120 milligrams and then be wide awake and be able to drive. You know, it was almost safer for me at the time to drive with them as opposed to when I was withdrawing driving. I'd be throwing up into a bag while I was on the highway and shit. I lost my gallbladder in recovery because of all the damage I did to my gallbladder when I was throwing up bile for years every single day. So, you had said you had a rough childhood?
Well, first of all, let me just speak to that. That's miraculous that you're here.
Yeah.
I hope you understand that that's a fucking miracle. There's no other way to explain it because you should be dead and I should be dead. Yeah. That's an amazing thing for us to sit here and be sharing love with each other, right? And support for each other when fucking by all rights in the circumstances and the situations we put ourselves in, we shouldn't have been alive. We shouldn't be here right now. So kudos. Right. Thank our higher power for that, for our presence here today. And the ability to help people now. Right. I mean, that's the biggest thing is to turn around and reach back and pull people into the light in the best way we can. So that's a powerful part of my life now and my purpose too. So I commend you big time on that.
Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah. The day I almost died was I had taken a bunch of Xanax. And then I was starting to be like, okay, now I need to go. Like I finally calmed down from a panic attack. I need to now drive 2 hours to go get my pills. And I hopped on the PA Turnpike. And anyone who's ever driven on the PA Turnpike knows it's really windy because of the mountains that you're going around in Pennsylvania. And I was driving and like I would always look at the mile markers, right? And they'd be like, okay, I'm at mile marker 336, so I'm 30 miles from my exit, and kind of do that countdown as I got closer. And I remember being like, okay, I'm 30 miles from my exit. And then I came to, and I was 30 miles past my exit. Blacked out for 60 miles while I was driving 90 miles per hour. Like I came to, I was at 90 miles an hour, and I don't remember a single bit of that 60-mile stretch. Like, and that scared me, and I didn't do benzos again up until last summer.
Wow.
Because it scared me so much. Right. So that is something that I feel like I could have died that day. I could have driven off into a tree and killed me and my dog.
Big time, right? Big time. I mean, blacking out while you're driving. Think of all, I mean, just not just you too, all these innocent people that are driving around you. Yep. It's a fucking suicide mission. You know what I mean? Addiction is a fucking horrible place to be, man. It's just, it's scary for lack of a better term. It's a fucking scary place. Where you said you did benzos again last summer?
Yeah.
So was there a preemptive event that made you go back to these things, or were you just
my dad passed away?
Oh, okay. Got it. Okay. So that's a tough one.
And that was like my best friend. We talked every single day.
Sure.
We both had, like I said, I'm JD because my dad and I share the same name.
Got it.
So we looked the same, we sound the same. We both had the same kind of outlook on things. We worked together every day. So not only were we, father, son, we were close friends. We watched the same shows, watched the same movies. Both could quote movies all day long. We're the person that you call saying, hey, who was that guy in this movie? Right. You know what I mean?
The trivia guys. Yeah.
We were that phone call for our family members.
Sure.
So now I'm getting phone calls from my aunt and grandma because they don't call my dad anymore. To get that answer.
So
was your relationship with your parents?
Not so good. But let me ask you this: was it a sudden death from your dad, or was it something that you knew was coming? Or
we knew it was coming. He was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer the year before. Got it. And the last 3 months were really rough for him. He wasn't able to really get out of bed. He had to call out of work a lot. And my dad's the kind of guy at 62 years old, he never called out of work.
Sure.
And, next thing you know, he's calling out, multiple times a week. And, he would go to work sick and it didn't stop him. He was going to go to work. He was a workaholic. But I started noticing when he was calling out from work that something is seriously wrong with him and he must be really sick if he's calling out of work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good sign that things aren't right. To go back to benzos, after that, would you say that was grief driven, that you just couldn't handle the fucking impact of not having your dad anymore? Would you say that was,
Exactly.
okay, got it. Did that last a long time, or was that just a one-time situation, or
No,
is that
it went on from July until April.
till April? Okay, so quite, a few months anyway, 8 months, 6 months, 8 months, whatever. How did you stop? Did you kind of just the same thing? I'm fucking done with this. I can't do this anymore type thing, and then
Yep.
get help for it? Yeah, good.
Yeah, I took off of work for a month. I did FMLA and I got short-term disability, and I took a mental health leave for a month and got back into going to AA every day. Started doing the work again, got a sponsor, and committed myself back into the program. I didn't go to rehab or anything this time around, is because I knew what rehab was going to do. It was going to tell me to get into therapy, which I was already in therapy.
Right.
Tell me to get back into going to meetings. I already was going to go back into meetings anyway. So I'm saving myself 30 grand and not going to go to rehab when I know the things that they're going to tell me to
do anyway. Right.
Yeah.
How do you feel about your dad's death now? Do you feel that you've come to terms with it, that you've healed from it, or are you still dealing with things with that? Or
no, I still a big thing that happened early on in my new recovery. I woke up. I had a dream and I was walking into a church basement for a meeting, and my dad was sitting there and he said, "Welcome back. I'm glad you're here." So that was a big sign to me that I was doing the right thing by going back into recovery.
Good.
And I still think to call him all the time. And every time I think to myself, I want to call my dad, I call my mom instead. Beautiful. And I talked to her for like a half an hour. So my mom and I have gotten closer since then. My brother and sister and I have always been close, so I still have that kind of relationship with them.
Beautiful. Yeah, family's important.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
What were you saying yours was like? Tumultuous?
Just shitty, just absentee dad, that I couldn't connect to. A lot of anger and hatred in my house. That's what I was asked this the other day. Actually, my wife and I were talking about our childhoods, and we talk about that shit all the time. She's a therapist, so we have, like you and your wife, she's very supportive of therapy in general, but certainly talking through things. But she asked me, I had never thought about that. She said, "What was the predominant energy in your house when you were a kid?" And I came up with the word hatred. I mean, I just felt it from everybody. There was just a lot of fucking hate in my house. It just was everywhere. It was insidious almost. So I became a really angry young man, just fucking angry, just an assholey guy, just pissed off. Not with my friends. My friends would never say that. I was the most loving, compassionate person in the world. But generally, my overtone in the world, the way I viewed the world, was just fucking hated it. I was angry. I was separate. I didn't love myself. I fucking, wanted away from all these things that were inundating me with lack of love, because there was just a lack of love there. There wasn't that warmth, that tenderness, that support that we would hope for in your family, So I'm still unpacking bags, bro. At 54 years old, I'm still unpacking fucking shit. I'm still, purging things that come through me. It never ends, this work. It doesn't end. It's not something that you get to the end of recovery and you go, okay, I'm good. I'm fucking sober now. And that's not the way it works. How deep do you want to go? How deeply do you want to know yourself? How great do you want to feel? And I can tell you that right now, I've done enough work to where I can be in a state of bliss. I can exist in bliss. I love my fucking life. Love it more than anything else in the world. But I also understand that there's things that I got to be uber aware of all the time. Patterns that come back through me, things that jump into your head, reactiveness, right? Reactions, things that I'm not aware of. So it's a heightened state of awareness now, where I just got to make sure that I'm paying attention to myself and how I feel, and then how I'm treating people around me. because that's super important. That's a great gauge to how you feel, is how you're treating people, yourself included.
Did you meet your wife in sobriety?
I did not. Yes, I was sober. She's never seen me drink. My wife and I now we have our 11th anniversary in 2 weeks. We met when we were kids. I actually gave her first kiss at 13 years old. We went away from each other and never forgot each other. And then obviously through social media, you can come back and meet people that, where years before we never had that opportunity. So we reconnected and we've been married now for 11 years, together for 12. She's never saw that side of me. She never saw me addicted or with that stuff. She's seen a lot of my food stuff and helped me with that, because that's been a big part of my addiction too. Like you said, more never stops. It happens with anything, even things that are beneficial, even things that we think are good for us. I overdo it. You know what I mean? That's a pattern. It's a pattern to overdo everything. And that's something I'm trying to break, even with things that are good, because balance is the key to life. The more we can balance and take that middle way, we're not extreme one way or the other, and we feel at peace here. That's what we want. We want to be peaceful. We want to be happy people, I assume. Most of us do. So that's what I'm trying. My work every day is just to find that middle harmony place and just live there and exist there.
Yeah. And your 20s were mostly like a drunken...
just forgotten, just a blackout. Basically a blackout, just a constant fucking party that never ended. It just never ended. I mean, I would, the routine was, I didn't work. I was a fucking bum. I couch hopped. I lived in my car. I lived at parks. I did whatever I had to do to just survive. I was a hustler. I would just, fucking make money however I made it. But a typical weekend, specifically at the bar, because like I said, that was the fabric of everything that was going on in my life, was the bar. The camaraderie, the friendships, all that shit was there. So, I would show up Friday and start drinking with the Friday crowd. And we had live music at the bar on Friday, which I love. I'm a DJ. I fucking love music. It's my life. So that was a big part of it. And I drink until 2:00 and everybody would leave and they would lock me in the fucking bar. I wouldn't go anywhere. They knew I wasn't done. I wasn't done partying. So I would stay in there, sometimes by myself, sometimes with other people, and just keep drinking. And I'd be there until Saturday morning, until the Saturday, Eddie was the bartender that would come in Saturday morning. And he'd walk in at 5:30, 6:00 in the morning. And they're, hey, wow, how you doing? Okay. And he would sit down and him and I would have gin and tonics together. And then the college football games would start and we'd start gambling. And I'd stay there all day Saturday night. And then Saturday night was karaoke night, which I loved, because now I can get up drunk and sing and do all the stupid shit that you do when you're in a bar. And then the Saturday crew, and they'd lock me in again all day Saturday night, and I'd keep drinking, and I fucking wouldn't stop until Sunday night. Sunday night was my night finally to go home. And that was generally just because that was it. That was the end of the fucking weekend. There was no more people to party. I would have kept partying if Monday was a holiday. I'd have fucking stayed there that long. And, one day there was a lot of moments of clarity through this, right? As you know, there's moments of clarity that show us how fucked up we really are. One day the bartender said, hey man, come over here. And I fucking went over there. His name was Jack. And he said, hey man, look at that. And I looked down and there was a breakage, what they call breakage, where they put the empty bottles and shit. And there was 4 bar size, whatever the fuck they are, 750 milligram or whatever, milliliter or whatever. There was 4 of them of Smirnoff fucking alcohol. He goes, you're the only one that drinks that. He goes, there ain't anybody in this fucking bar that even drinks Smirnoff but you. He goes, in this weekend, you drank 4 of those fucking bottles by yourself? And I went, fuck, man, no shit. That's fucking crazy. But you don't know that. I fucking had no idea how much I drank. I didn't have any idea. I was just fucking along for the fucking party. And it felt good, right? Partying is fun. There's no fucking question about that. But it's the flip side. What did I do when I went home Monday? I slept for 3 fucking days. I couldn't even get out of bed. I shit blood. I couldn't fucking wipe my own ass. I couldn't, there was things that I was doing that were fucking horrible. And it made me a miserable motherfucker is what it did. It made me a miserable person. That's what I was. Fucking miserable. Even though you're having fun, that's great. You put on one mask when you're fucking partying and that's great. But I got to deal with looking in the mirror on a Monday and a Tuesday going, dude, your fucking life is shit. It's fucking horrible. You have no job. You have no fucking direction. There's no aim in your life. You have nothing going on. And after you have a series of those events, at some point, you got to fucking man up. You got to man the fuck up and get mature and say, dude, I got to do something about this. And so I quit multiple times. But as you know, you go back, you quit and go back, you quit and go back. I probably did it 146 times. The 147th time it stuck. There's a great analogy. I don't know if you know the show Seinfeld. But, you know, I watch it my whole life. But there's this one episode of the show where Jerry Seinfeld says, you don't go up to a fucking Coke machine and just put that fucking over in one thing. You know, you got to rock the Coke machine back and forth, and then finally it goes over. And that's the same thing with sobriety. You just got to keep going at it. You keep going at it. The law of attrition. At some point, that fucking machine's going to fall over if you want it to. But it might not happen the first fucking time you do it, right? It's not going to happen the fucking first time you try something, because that lure is still strong. Those subconscious patterns are still pulling you right back to the fucking bar. Until you break those patterns, that still exists. And by the grace of God, or whatever we call it, we've had that miracle happen in our lives. And it's fucking beautiful, man. It's the most beautiful thing that's ever happened in my life. And I save my blessings every fucking day. Thank God for sobriety.
Yeah, there's still people that are still in addiction that I used to use with. And I've tried reaching out to them, you know, just to like let them know I was still around.
Sure.
And you know what I mean? But I don't hear from them really. And, you know, it is what it is, as long as they know that they can hit me up when they're ready.
That's it, bro.
Because I can't force anybody to get recovery.
That's a difficult part of this, is seeing people we love still addicted. You know, when I quit, I went back to the bar because I still was playing fantasy football and gambling, and I still had friendships that I still wanted to maintain. But I felt totally different about it because, like I said, the day I woke up on April 4th, I knew I would never fucking drink again. There just wasn't any question. And what's really weird about this, and I'm writing this in my book, is I've often thought about how did that happen? There was an element of control in saying no. And I grew up with no control. So I became a narcissist. I tried to control things in my fucking own environment. And you know how well that doesn't work at all, because life doesn't give us that. But one thing I could control is saying no. No, I'm not going to fucking drink anymore. No, I will not. And I got asked fucking, I don't know, 450,000 times, dude, let's go get fucking drunk, right? Come over, let's go to the bar. Let's go here. Let's do this. And I said, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not that guy anymore. That's it. It's over. It's done. And that gave me a certain power and a control that I had never felt before. Because when you're drinking, you're just going with the fucking flow. You're not thinking about control. I was just out of control, is basically what I was. I thought it was freedom, but it was no fucking freedom in that at all. It was the same fucking thing every day.
I've had some people in my life being like, well, you're not an alcoholic because I can outdrink you and I'm not an alcoholic.
Wow.
You know, and trying to like get me to drink again. It's like, listen, like one time I was going to a funeral for a good friend of mine that passed away from addiction. You know, he relapsed and he overdosed on his relapse. Mm-hmm. And it was my first funeral that I have to go to in sobriety. And I met up with all of our friends before we went out and went to the funeral together. And they were all doing shots. And they were like, how about you do a shot with us? I'm like, I'm an alcoholic. I don't do shots anymore. And they're like, oh, you're such a pussy. You're not really an alcoholic. Like, you can drink. You're fine. I'm like, well, listen, he died on his relapse. I'm not going to relapse over someone that we're about to go see that relapsed and died.
No.
Like, you're not going to get me to drink with you when this person relapsed and then died.
Let me ask you this. How did you feel about that when you said no and said, fuck
no?
Oh,
it felt good.
See, it does. I tried to tell that.
Felt like a fuck you.
Yeah, you know fuck you. And not only that, a fuck you, but watch this, motherfucker. Watch me show my strength here when I'm fucking produce something that I struggle with my whole fucking life and I'm not doing it anymore. There's a big strength in that, and it's a fucking great feeling. It breeds a lot of confidence in you, right? To say, no, fuck no, I'm not doing that. That's a big deal.
I was such a big drinker in high school. My nickname was Mess. You know what I mean? I was the one that got drunk and, you know, would pass out places or get fucked up and do crazy things. You know what I mean? To the point where that was my nickname. I got alcohol poisoning when I was 16 I drank a bottle of Bacardi in 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, and I ended up in the hospital that night for alcohol poisoning because I was so fucked up and from drinking that so fast.
It just, man, holy shit.
Yeah.
Holy shit with that. Yeah, it'll fucking circle the drain, and then one day you either go down or you find the gumption to get the fuck out of there, right? And it is gumption, and you know that's a point I definitely want to make because in writing this book, I want people to understand that the choice for sobriety is such a fucking beautiful show of self-love. It really is. I mean, ultimately, at the core of that, you're loving yourself. You're making a choice for betterment, right? You may not classify it that way. You may not label it that way. But the reality of it is it's a self-loving choice. You're saying, I'm putting myself first now over the suffering of addiction or over the dopamine rush or over the fun that I had partying, because I need to do this. I'm to do this for myself because I love myself more than I love that bottle. I love myself more than I love that pill. And I'm going to find a way to do that. And that's a real critical component here, because I think a lot of us defer to the things that help us with that, like therapy or rehab or fucking meetings. That's a help. But you're the one that fucking is doing it. You're the one, JD, that is choosing sobriety every day. You're the one that's doing it. It's coming from you and your soul and your spirit and your inner power. It's not that, because that would be there even if you drank again. Those fucking systems, they'd still be there. They're not running on you being there. They're running for the people who want to be sober. And it's a great assistance. It's phenomenal. But ultimately, that's not the power that makes you sober. You're sober because you're choosing to fucking be sober. That's why.
Yeah, that was, I heard early on from my first sponsor who ended up relapsing. He always preached that, like, we have the power of choice today. Mm-hmm. And as soon as we use that drug again, that's when we lose that power of choice again.
It goes away.
And when he relapsed, I was devastated. And I said to somebody who ended up being my sponsor, like, well, what the hell do I do now? Everything he taught me was full of lies. Mm-hmm. And she was like, no, he's taught you a lot of good things. Mm-hmm. The problem is he stopped listening to his own advice.
He did.
And he relapsed. So all the things he taught you were taught with good intentions and are really things that you should hold on to. Right. Like the power of choice that you always talk about.
100%. That never went away from me, right? You're telling me right now, right? You're reiterating that right now to me. The same shit he taught you, you're telling me, and that's keeping you sober. So no matter what he did in his life, that doesn't impact the truth he gave you. Fucking hold on to that. It's true. Absolutely fucking true. I never look at the source of information. I don't give a fuck who said it or why they said it. That doesn't ever, if it resonates with my soul, I will use it for my own good. I don't give a fuck what they do or what they say. I mean, that doesn't matter to me. I'm not looking at people and judging what they do or say. What I know is that when something comes into my field and it's meaningful to me, like what he told you about the choices we make and those things, that will never go away from you, bro. Ever. That's with you forever. No matter what he does in his life, that's his own choice. That's his own path. And you don't have any control over that. What you do have control of is taking his wisdom and applying that to your life. And that's a beautiful fucking thing.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. Yep.
100%. That's beautiful.
It was great talking to you, Joaquin. I took a lot of fun.
You too, man. Thank you for having me on. I fucking really enjoyed it. I'm loving, again, let me reiterate. Thank you, bro. Thank you for doing this. It makes my heart super grateful to have people like you in the world that don't just get their own toy and run and play with it on their own. They're turning around and grabbing people and pulling them into the light. That's fucking phenomenal.
Yeah, so your episode will come out in December, and I'm releasing new episodes every single day from Thanksgiving Eve to New Year's Day to raise awareness around relapsing during the holidays.
Man. You're doing God's work, bro. Thank you so much.
No problem. Have a nice day, Joaquin.
You too, brother.
See ya.
See ya.